Hi, welcome back to my No Name channel, and this is Bruce Pullman, and this is another in the Introduction to Anthropology series. Today I'm going to be looking at the Spice Islands in Indonesia and the spice root. And why? Well, this is one of the things that anthropologists do. This comes from a lecture or a talk that I did when I was working on a cruise ship as a guest lecturer, giving talks about anthropology of the areas that we were visiting. And this is a long one. This lasted, when I actually did this in real life, a little over 45 minutes. So I may split this into two. I may just decide to go ahead and do the whole thing and then edit it. Let's get started by talking about the Spice Islands first, and then we'll get to the spice root later on. So the Spice Islands, you can see by this map, are located in the eastern part of Indonesia. There's approximately 273 million people that live in Indonesia, and the population of the Spice Islands, which are called the Malukus, approximately 3 million. So 3 million out of 273 million. You can see in this map, this is a lot of space, a lot of area, but very small part of the Indonesian population. And well, we'll talk about why later. So set far off the beaten track, now there's this large group of islands, some no more than just tiny slivers of volcanic rock, others of significant size that make up an archipelago within the archipelago of Indonesia. These islands are called the Moluccas, or the Maluku Islands. There are approximately 1,000 islands, and here's another map. I love maps. The largest islands, Halmahera and Seram. There's two provinces in the Moluccas. There used to be one that was changed in 1999, to two, and so there's the North Maluku and Maluku, the provinces, and the North Maluku is predominantly Islam, predominantly Muslim population. In the south, there are more Christians, but a lot of those Christians left, and I'm going to talk about that later. The capital of the North Malukus is located on the largest island, Halmahera, and it's Fifi. And the province of Maluku has its capital in Ambon, and I've been to Ambon a number of times. I really like Ambon. And it had a large Christian population. It was reduced in 1999 when the Moluccas were racked by terrible strife between Muslims and Christians. There were thousands of deaths, hundreds of thousands of residents were displaced, major damage to homes, businesses, government buildings, places of worship, and it was all over some rumors. This was at the time when Indonesia was in flux because of the stepping down of Suharto as the president. And well, you're going to see some signs at some of the historic buildings that talk about the penalties for damaging historic buildings, because some of these were damaged during the riots in 1999, and there are extremely stiff penalties now for damaging anything of historic worth. The Moluccas once played an extremely important part in world history, and they were the driving force in the age of exploration. From last video, I have a hard time saying that. Within this archipelago lies the core of what were known as the Spice Islands, and they were the only islands in the world at the time where you could find nutmeg, mace, and cloves, and these spices were worth a fortune, more than gold. Europeans went to a great deal of violence, deception, daring, if you want to take the side of the explorers, in order to find the spices and then seize control of them and develop a monopoly. By the mid-18th century, their importance had begun to die out as coffee and tea became the major money crops. And also around that time, nutmeg and clove had been smuggled out of the Malukus in order to grow in other places to break this monopoly. And I'm going to talk about the story behind that. This is pretty interesting. And they were planted in Africa, the Caribbean, and India. But first, let's take a look at the anthropology and geography of the Maluku Islands. So there's a wide range of ecosystems. You see a volcano here. This is Gunung Api, Fire Mountain. There's salt marshes, coral reefs, mangroves, volcanoes, rainforests, swamps, and marshes. Among the fauna, we find pigs, deer, dwarf tree kangaroos, some only 30 centimeters in height, tree-dwelling couscouses, shrews, lizards, 22 species of parrots, the birds of paradise, cassowaries, brown boobies, nutmeg-eating pigeons. Lizards, I love lizards. Lizards are real cool. Here's one of the lizards that you can find there. The racket-tailed kingfisher, the giant red-crested cockatoo. The maleo is a megapod that builds a nest in vegetation. And you can see it here. This is a cool picture. And sea creatures. Sea creatures are extensive, but as I said, what the Malukus are really known for are its spices. And so let's take a look at the human population. Our humans have been resident in the Malukus for approximately 32,000 years, according to archaeological evidence, and the population is a mix of Melanesians and Austronesians. These are various populations in Asia, Oceania, and Africa that speak languages from the Austronesian family. These include Taiwanese, Aborigines, the majority ethnic groups of Malaysia, people from East Timor, the Philippines, Indonesia, Brunei, Keeling Islands, Madagascar, Micronesia, and Polynesia, as well as the Malay people of Singapore, the Polynesian peoples of New Zealand, and the non-Papuans of Melanesia. So, here's an old photograph, and another one, Chinese family that I like from back in the old period. So, let's take a look at the Banda Islands, because the Banda Islands are where everything gets started. It's just a key part of the Spice Islands. And the Banda Islands, you see here in the map, it's a group of 9 or 10 islands. Depends on your source. And they lie in the southern part of the Malukus. These islands are Banda Neira, Banda Besar, Banda Api, Pulau A, Pulau Run, Pulau Hata, Pulau Pisang, and Pulau Nilaka. And I'm mostly interested in Banda Besar and Banda Neira, two of the islands that I've visited a number of times. The largest island is Banda Besar, about 44 square kilometers, not very big. And the Banda Islands were the only source of nutmeg in the world up until the mid-19th century. They're popular now for diving and snorkeling, as well as historical sites. And Banda Api has an active volcano. It's about close to 700 meters high. Banda Neira is the main administrative center, and it has about 6,000 of the islands group of population, which is somewhere around 20,000. And last time I was there, which was 2018, they were talking about building an airport there. I went and let's see if I can find the photograph here. there is a plane lands there, a small plane, and you take a look at this and would not want to land there. But they're talking about building a bigger airport to encourage tourism. Okay, so as you can see in some of the photographs as we go through this, the area is pretty much a backwater these days. This was a main part of world history, and after the loss of the monopoly on cloves and nutmeg, it sank into backwater status. And when I first came to Indonesia, it was very difficult to get there. It's still not easy. When I was on a cruise ship, last time I was there, I was on the cruise ship, and I got a tropical ulcer. I was extremely sick. A huge part of my leg was eaten away. A huge part of the calf muscle was eaten away. And they were talking about trying to get me out, but it was just, there was no way for me to get out for another 3 days. And by that time, it would have taken 3 days to get me out of there. By that time, we were able to get back to Australia on the cruise ship, and I was able to see a doctor there. So this is still not an easy place to get to, which is one of the reasons that it's pretty cool to visit. There's great snorkeling, great diving, the people are wonderful, a lot of historic buildings. So this is a place that if you get to Indonesia, you should take a visit. You can catch flights and go from Bali to, well, the last trip I made, you had to go from Bali to Makassar, transfer in Makassar, and then take a flight into Ambon. And then from Ambon, you can either get a small flight if you wanted to get to Banda Neira, to the Banda Islands, or you can take a boat, slow boat, fast boat. They have both, but not always on time. So anyway, so Banda Neira is the main administrative center, and here's a photo. Here's another photo. Okay, and so the Banda Neira was the exiled home of Muhammad Hatta, who became the first vice president of Indonesia, and Sultan Sahir. Fort Belgica was built in the 17th century, and up until the troubles of 1999 started in Ambon and then spread across the Malukus, the population of Banda Neira was about 60% Muslim and 40% Christian. Ethnicity was mixed within this religious configuration. In 1999, as the troubles that began in Ambon moved south, the Indonesian Navy arrived in Banda with an offer to move Christians to other islands. Almost all of them accepted. Later, after the troubles had subsided, an offer was made for them to move back to Banda Neira, but the overwhelming majority of them elected to stay at their new homes, Bali, Sulawesi, islands in the farther south of the Malukus. They sold their houses to Muslim residents, and Banda Neira now is about 99% Muslim, according to my sources there. And this is evident when you walk the streets of the island. So Banda Neira has government offices, schools, a wharf, an old church from the Dutch period, several mosques, a Chinese temple, and Fort Nassau, which is being renovated. Fort Belgica is an important tourist point. And there's a number of hotels, guest houses, restaurants. I ran across an American woman who was living there, was married to a local guy who was a tour guide, and she had a little restaurant, and I think a homestay. I really want to get back there, and once this coronavirus thing ends here in Indonesia, I'm hoping to get back there and spend some time. And so these businesses are geared towards the tourist trade, which has gone up. There are more and more tourists. You can see the little streets in the area are really very cool. There's just this lovely feeling to being there, even today. And over at the medical facility, there is this photo here, and I like this photo because what does it say? So I'll translate this as we go. So up at the top it says Pintu Masuk. Okay, so that's the door that you enter, and then you get to triage, and then there's emergencies and non-emergencies. And if you've got non-emergency, you go down to go home. If you're examined and you have an emergency, you can be observed for a while, and you can become an inpatient. This is if you get there and it's not an emergency, but then they discover something afterwards, which means that you have some problems. And after your 2-hour observation, then they make a decision whether to send you home or keep you. And then if you come in as an emergency patient, there's resuscitation and stabilization. So it says resuscitasi and stabilizasi. And then you go down and you've got OK, and then ICU, right? So you've been observed, you go to the ICU, and well, you may just end up dead, which is what it says at the very bottom, meninggal. So I was making a joke when I first went here, and I said, I do not want to come to this place where they've got, okay, you can end up dying here. But at one point when I had this tropical ulcer, we were looking at actually sending me there for a quick checkup before getting me back to Ambon, where I could have taken a flight to Bali. So, okay, let's take a look at the Spice Islands and the spice route. Well, that's about it for today. I am going to split this into a couple of parts, and so we're going to end now. In the next video, we're going to pick up and talk about the spice route and what happens to the Banda Islands. And then the plan is, after that, to go back and finish the history of anthropology, and then come back and do the last of the spice trades, spice routes, spice islands, spice trade video on Ternate and Tidore and what was happening up north, while all this stuff is happening down south, because up north is where you have most of the cloves. And so that's it for today, and be safe, follow the protocols. Coronavirus is still a problem here in Indonesia, as it is in many places around the world. Be safe and be kind to someone today. Thanks for viewing. See you next time.